Hi, I'm DeTracey, and welcome to another episode of My Messy House, because MS is raw and it's real. And that messy house is not the house you live in, it's the house that you live in. I'm now calling it the high rise, the top floor, the penthouse, the tip. And that's where the messiness is. That's where the thoughts circulate and circulate and circulate and circulate and cause that suffering that we have in our life. And when we want to tame those thoughts, we need to have strategies. And many of those strategies come around creating consciousness and awareness. So if you live with MS and fatigue, then you're in the right place at the right time to be watching this. If you are watching this for the first time, you can subscribe below, and I encourage you to write comments. I love to hear from you. It means the world to me. I live with MS, and I live with, a truckload of fatigue. So, hey, I'm right there with you. What does this mean? 71%. That's what we're going to be talking about today. 71%. I talked about this a little bit. I teased about it in episode number 28. And this is around loss. Loss that happens in our life once we are diagnosed. Maybe for some of you, even before you were diagnosed, because we know, goodness knows that journey with MS diagnosis for some can be a long road, For me, fortunately, I had such a bad relapse and my brain was so inflamed, and I finally got my butt to the hospital. And when I did that, I was diagnosed within 24 hours. So it was a very quick diagnosis. Kind of traumatic, but very quick. Pull off that Band-Aid right away. So let's come back to 71%. So in the research that I've done, 71% of people living with multiple sclerosis have experienced loss in their life. Loss of family members, loss of friends, loss of, relatives, parents, siblings, because of their diagnosis and because of the state that they are in as a result of multiple sclerosis and all of the, whether it be depression, anxiety, stress, pain, relapses, vision issues, you name it, right? You got the list. I don't even need to go through it because you could tell me that list and probably be like twice as long because you got this, right? So 71% of people experience that. That's very, very high. That means that we are not only grieving our circumstances for ourselves in terms of this significant change, and even if we knew it was in our system before and we finally have a label for it, it's still what I would call a cold bucket moment, right? And I want to acknowledge a person who uses the cold bucket expression. That's a woman named Ulrika Rodriguez, because that's her expression that I am quoting from, the cold bucket moment. And when we have those cold bucket moments, it's tough, right? I mean, it's really hard to lose people in our life. And I've talked about forgiveness in the previous episode number 28. So if you want to check that one out, that might be useful before even listening to this episode. But when we're looking at that, it means that we are not alone, okay? We are in this together. Most of us with a critical illness of some sort, diagnosis that has ripple effects that affect our health, our energy, our well-being, we're going to experience loss. Now, we don't really know why people are making those choices to not be available. It may be that they are just traumatized because they love us so much and they just don't know how to deal with it. So they don't want to talk about it, and so they become invisible. Who are we to know, right? It's a sad thing, and it's a reality. And the fact is that when we look at life, and I think I'm having a little hot flash now, so if I turn into a beet like a tomato, it's not because I'm sad in this moment, it's just because of menopause. So coming back to this loss, loss of relationships, which is, a truth bomb for most of us out there, right? I definitely have had attrition in my life. But what I have noticed is once I've worked through the sadness, is the miracle that has happened for me, and I'm hoping that this has shown up in your life as well and that you can see it, is that other people show up. And I have found, to be honest, that it has been a huge relief for me to have people coming into my life post diagnosis, post the biggest trauma or the biggest relapse I had, the biggest, baddest, relapse I had, or during that relapse for that matter, because they're meeting me in the present as I am, right? The Jen DeTracey that I am at the point that they're meeting me. Does that make sense? So they don't know how I was before. They don't know the Jen that was working 12-hour days and making, a good amount of income as opposed to, chipping away and living on a budget. They don't know that Jen because they're new in my life. They're meeting me as I am right now. And, I have found that has been a real gift. Now, it can be hard if you're socially isolated to the point where you can't get out of your house and connect with people at all. That can be very difficult. But there are ways, for example, through the MS Society, where you can be hooked up with a peer support person, and that can be a way to have someone connect in your life. Like, there are ways for us to find connections, even with the most extreme obstacles that might be in our way, right? So I want to invite you to ponder the idea of how maybe it was painful at the time, or maybe it's still painful now, about the loss that you've had. And think about someone who has shown up in your life that has made a difference. Just one, right? It could be the neurologist that's shown up in your life, or the person that cuts your hair that's really shown up for you and listens to you, or the neighbor that all of a sudden becomes aware of your situation, or you move to a new place and the neighbor that you have now, whether you're living in an apartment building or house, that comes over and connects with you, that meets you just as you are right now. So even in this 70% of loss, there's opportunity. And when we can open our hearts, not necessarily to, just allow I guess what I'm thinking here, what I would like to share with you is, if even in all the pain and suffering, we can allow our hearts to stay even just like a little bit open, just a little bit open to the possibility that someone could come into our life in the smallest way and just know us as we are now, and the power of that. Please share your messages below, your thoughts on that. I really look forward to hearing from you. It's a real pleasure when there's a thread of comments. It means the world to me, and also just your contribution to this conversation, because this is so much bigger than me here sitting in a chair sharing with you right now. My heart is full of love, and my desire to connect in a bigger way with the world while living with fatigue and experiencing social isolation is so huge, right? So if you want to be part of more of these episodes of My Messy House, subscribe, press that big red button, comment below, share with the people that you think would benefit from this, like it, pass it on, post it on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, whatever that thing is for you. Thanks for being here. I love you. And I'm Jen DeTracey. This is My Messy House, because MS is raw and real. And we'll see you again soon. Ciao.